Today's chat is brought to you by the support of all our Twitch subscribers. Through the patronage you provide the Focus Fire chat team through the Twitch platform, we are able to provide you with the weekly podcast as well as the website and other aspects of Focus Fire chat. If you have any interest in becoming a subscriber of the FFC and gaining access to some exclusive features over in the Discord server, please be sure to visit our Twitch account and click on the subscribe button. If you're an Amazon Prime member, remember that you do have a free subscription to Twitch every month that can be used for this. And for those of you who are already subscribers, thank you again for your generosity. You may have heard the whispers of guardians gathering in the shadows, exploring the mysteries of this world and the worlds which surround us. We are all in search of truth. Sometimes we need to focus that search, focus that fire. And so we come together. Join us. Join the discussion. Welcome to Focused Fire Chat. Welcome back for episode 148 of Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on October 26 over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Our topic for tonight's episode is going to be a look at the Marasenna lore booklet. But first, let's run through a quick introduction of those on the show for tonight. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86. Next up, we have our own master of social media, the one and only Green-Eyed Music Lover. Green, hope you're doing well. How has the week treated you so far?
Not too bad. Haven't been playing a ton of Destiny, but I did do something I haven't done, and I've actually been committing to it a little bit more than I have ever before. And I told Beard today that he should be proud of me because I finally made a warlock, and I put at least over an hour into the character so far, and I'm playing the warlock now. So there's that. I'm learning how to floof. It's difficult.
I was trying to teach her how to floof. She wasn't picking up on it very well.
Yeah, you were saying something about double tapping. Like,
do I have to make a video?
Do I just have to? Here, listen. Do I just do this?
No.
Okay.
No.
Doesn't seem to work very well. I'm just spazzing all over the screen.
Like, just tap it and hit it again. Just da-da.
Da-da?
Da-da.
Da-da?
Yeah.
Okay.
Da-da. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if I have to vocalize this anyway, it's da-da.
I can do that. Give me rhythmic cues and I'll be fine.
See, one musician to another. We understand this. We get it.
Yeah.
Da-da.
Da-da.
Maybe someday I'll be able to actually jump vertically with a warlock. Right now, that's not happening.
Do I really have to make a video about this?
Just tell me how to do it after the show. Just tell me how to do it after the show.
Do I have to content cop the ideas of how to floof properly? Anyway.
Well, rounding out the usual team, we have the man who is known far and wide as the Destiny lore content cop, and apparently the floofer educational system, the one and only Beard Grizzly. Beard, how are you doing tonight?
I swear with these nicknames. I am doing
to
well.
be fair, I came up with that one on the
yeah,
I mean, I could have been like,
that one.
Here's da-da. Da-da. Is that how we communicate in Warlock?
It could be a next bad Destiny joke.
No,
should get Cole on that.
Yeah, when she gets time, the poor girl.
Yeah,
this week's been interesting. As I mentioned actually in top 3 a little bit ago, for anybody that's coming straight from there, I actually have my sister visiting for almost a month, I think it is at this point. But this is her first week back. So it's been nice to catch up with her, of course, since she lives over in California and I'm over here in PA. It's a little bit of a distance, just a little bit. But that being said, yeah, it's good to kind of hang out with her, spend a little bit more time with her again. Between that, I've been also reading up on everything that I've been missing out on when it comes down to the lore. I am officially down to, as of like a couple days ago, actually, I was down to just needing to read ghost stories, and I've legitimately lacked any ability to like find time to do so between a couple other things that have been going on in life. So that being said, one more book to go, and then I am back to creating content and basically just being able to be like, here's everything that I found out, because I'm crazy and I like to hold it all in up until I'm all done with it all. We also have been kind of what's the word here? Productive over the course of the week. My father actually bought a Drobo, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with them, but they're basically the best little NAS systems or network drive systems that you can get a hold of.
Huh.
But this actually allowed for a older NAS that we had to be freed up. So I now have a network drive that I can back up all my stuff to,
Oh, nice.
which is immensely helpful, considering I have not had the ability to pick up a backup drive for a little while now. But yeah, that being said, I now have like all my videos being backed up as we speak to the thing,
Cool.
transferring at a whole 12 megasecond, but it's getting there.
Beep beep beep.
Yeah, basically.
Beep-o-bee! Beep-o-bee! So for this episode, Green was kind enough to ask the community, Green, I'm going to let you voice the question.
Okay.
Oh, no.
I may have done this partially to see if I would trigger Beard.
Yeah, because I wasn't here last week. Sorry about that, by the way.
That's okay.
I might be a little bit more rambly than usual because I wasn't here last week. Just fair warning for everybody. I'll try to keep it under control, but
it is okay. So okay. So I asked the community, because we're talking about the Marasenna, is the Marasenna factual, or do you feel that it's embellished? And it was actually a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. We had 93 people vote on it. 57% of the people said that they felt it was embellished, versus 43% saying that it's 100% factual, which is a lot closer than I thought. A lot of people wanted, and a couple different people had commented on it. Zach said, Zach was asking if it was like an approximation to Books of Sorrow. Like, do you think it's an approximation to that? And the fact that we know that there's a lot of lies in Books of Sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, do we think Marasenna is kind of like the Awoken's version of Books of Sorrow? I kind of want to get your guys' opinions on that. What do you think?
I mean, did anybody else have any thoughts on their own, I guess, from that, or not entirely? Because I can get long-winded on this one.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of other comments basically saying that they think essentially history is told by the victors,
right?
And so that you're going to get some embellishments in general. Some people are like, I don't trust Mara, it's totally made up type thing.
Yeah, but that's the dumb part. I don't trust Mara because I think she is a backstabbing wench. I think overall,
We are
when all is
already
said,
there.
Oh yeah, we're already there. I of course will take this to the nth degree right off the bat.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think that there is grounds to say that it is embellished, but it is to drive the points home more than it is actually to throw out what possibly was there. If there's any embellishing that is going on inside of the Marasenna after having read it, it is the embellishment of the Awoken people and how great they are. Or for how great the ones that stayed back are within the distributary, which we're still not even entirely sure if that's the case or not. Like, we're never going to probably meet those people.
Right.
But that being said, like, those are the if there's any embellishment that I feel is there, it is how the Awoken people were within the distributary and how different they are now when we start to see and read about the events that happened throughout the Maraid and a few other books that we've kind of seen, or other entries that we've seen for the Awoken people. I really don't think that there is much embellishment in terms of how Morasov actually is. I really just see somebody that is doing something for the sake of what she feels is the correct direction that the universe or our solar system needs to go in. But that doesn't mean that it's in the best interest of the solar system or for the inhabitants. It is for the best interest of the awoken people. As I've mentioned like several times over, I think at this point, just because Rasputin is the guardian of Earth doesn't mean that he's the guardian of humanity anymore. It's sort of like Gamera, okay? Just because he's the guardian of Earth doesn't mean he's the guardian of humanity. It just means he likes the soil, all right?
He just likes the dirt there. He just likes the place.
But it's the same thing as the Awoken, I feel. They are in touch with the ideas of the universe, they're in touch with the ideas of the galaxy, but they are not in touch with the ideas of who is there and what ultimately it is going to come down to on who inhabits it. If it's for the betterment of the universe as a cosmic idea, then that's fine. And that's why I think we'll get to it, of course, as we go along with like all the logics and everything, of course, too. But the ideas that branch into Morozov as a whole, I really do feel just say like she is there for the betterment of the universe and like finding this balance within the universe. If I have to akin this to anybody, she's like the Anakin Skywalker of Destiny. Like she is there to find the balance within the within the Force, if you will. But that doesn't mean it's going to be over good necessitative reasonings.
All right then. With that,
like I said, long-winded.
No. It's just it's interesting because I know I have a very different perspective on how Mara is in this. And
well, you're also generally an Awoken.
I am always an Awoken. I never play any other race.
This is coming from the logical Exo. Like that's
right.
That's where I think the perspective
logical
is going to be. Yes, that's
Exo
how it works.
Warlock.
Yes, like that's how I think that this is going to be funny. Because Blue, you're traditionally humans, are you not?
No, I play a mix of Awoken and human, but yeah.
Okay.
My hunter is Awoken, my Titan is an Exo, and my Warlock is a human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're gonna. I don't know which one you actually. Generally,
I align more with the hunter, but that's not because of the species. It's because of the mechanics.
Right.
I do tend to kind of lean more towards the Exos as far as like personalities, I think, because I do agree with their. I don't know. I see the benefit of all three. It's pros and cons on all three, obviously.
Oh yeah.
And like Mara, there's a lot of interesting things that I know we'll get into, especially within the Marasenna, that really do, from a psychological standpoint, really kind of explain a lot of what Mara is doing, as well as Aldrin. It explains a lot of Aldrin's. I would almost call them issues. Not as much as the Forsaken Prince, but like Marasenna does kind of lay very strong groundwork for those two characters, especially. And there's just like seeing that piece of it. And I don't think those pieces were the embellished pieces. I do kind of agree with Beard. I think that they have deified the Awoken who stayed behind. As far as why they deified them, I have my own opinions of that, and we'll get into that, because I don't think it was for anything that... I don't think it was something that Mara necessarily wanted to do. I think it was an appeasement of sorts, basically.
Right.
Very likely.
To keep those who sacrifice... Well, we'll get into that.
Right.
But like, I agree 100% that they deified those who stayed behind. More so than even they were worth. And I think that maybe like in the Marasenna itself is kind of in the good old days, the golden days, and a throwback there. So is it is it like embellishment? Yeah, but it's embellishment in the same sense that anyone who's reading historical text will kind of see. Like, you kind of gloss over the bad and you kind of slightly kind of bump up the good.
The thing is, though, is Mara exposes herself as not being the greatest. I mean, even though Mara
Well,
is she
does
comes
she?
out on top. She
Right.
comes out on top, but she's got some really shady stuff that she talks about.
Oh yeah, but I mean, I think that's where my compromise back to the question kind of comes in, is like, I think that the Marasenna is a work of historical retelling, but I think it's in the same line. And Green, you and I have had this conversation offline. I think it's in the same line that you see like within the poets like Virgil and Homer. It's an epic poem basically of their history. It's an epic retelling, and in that epic retelling there is a lot of fact, but there is also some embellishment, because in order to tell a story you have to keep the interest. And so within the Marasenna, I think that's exactly what you're seeing. Is you're seeing an embellishment in regards to, hey, this is a story that we're telling. But you're 100% correct there as well, Green, because she doesn't pull punches even when it comes to herself. And like, for example, if you look at the Aeneid, that's the same that can be said about the story of Aeneas, who is the founder of Rome. I mean, like, the entire book is about the supremacy of Rome and, you know, all this stuff. And even in the Aeneid, Aeneas makes really dumb mistakes. Like, he just is, there are some points where it's just like, seriously, dude, like, you are an idiot. And they do that because they show that character, you know, when within the story, you see the character grow. Well, it humanizes them, but it also allows them to grow. And it kind of encourages them that, you know, hey, we have made mistakes in the past and we've learned from them. So any mistakes that we make now is a learning opportunity. It's not necessarily a failure. It's an opportunity to learn and become better. So it's that's where I kind of see, like, maybe an embellishment, especially in the Marasenna, is more of it. You know, call it propaganda, call it political speak, whatever you want. It is also education. Like, that is what these things do. So, I do think it was embellished, but I don't think it necessarily was embellished for a nefarious purpose. Though, I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know.
I think that's why, though, it legitimately comes down to, like, who is either writing it or communicating to it, etc. Like, you want to give a better impression. Like, Mara can officially go ahead and, like, put onto the books, like, these are the ways that we wanted to, like, go away from these from the distributary or whatnot. But she can still go ahead and talk highly of the people that she left behind.
Here's an interesting
largely
question,
because
too.
of, like, a large person she left behind, I have a feeling. But anyway.
Another question, though, that kind of leads into the actual bulk of our thing is, do you think Mara actually wrote the entire text of it? Because she, as far as I can tell, she penned the first card, yes, but a lot of the rest of it is told either through, like, third person.
I have a theory on that too. I think that she pinned the first and the last card. I think I get the feeling that that's her statements, and I think that's kind of her being, like, kind of what Beard is saying, like, the kind of, like, this is the official story, you know, like, it's not necessarily. I honestly, I think probably either a Cryptarch or a Tetchun probably pinned the actual information, because those are both the classifications of scholars within the Awoken populace. And
either that or a scribe, since we know that Asher kind of came along
Jensen.
as well.
Yeah, but my argument against that is the Jensen scribes are really anti-Mara. Like, they really did not they did not like him. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think that the brunt of it was necessarily written by Mara, but I mean, again, we don't know. But I do agree. I do agree that the first and last card were probably definitely.
Yeah. It feels like it had her oversight, if nothing else, but that's about as far as it went. I would probably say that, thinking back on it a little bit more.
With that being said, do you think we're ready to go into the bulk?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not like you can tell that we're kind of hyped up to talk about this one, but
I'm gonna say, and it's actually one that I can actually give input on for.
Yay!
So let's run through the intro real quick, and then we'll get right into it. In our last episode of Focus Fire Chat, we discussed Most Loyal. If you ever miss an episode and would like to catch up, please be sure to check out FocusFireChat.com for archives, articles, and links to the other aspects of Focus Fire Chat. If you don't mind, please rate and, if you can, review the show on iTunes, Podbean, or whichever podcasting app you use to enjoy podcasts. Reviews are extremely helpful as they not only let us know what we can do better, but help us stay up on the charts, which helps others find our amazing community. To those of you who have already taken the time to leave us a review, thank you. As many of you already know, Focus Fire Chat is a cross-community gathering where the intent is to offer a week-long, in-depth view of a particular subject from within the lore of Destiny and other games. This chat begins every Tuesday morning and runs until the following Tuesday, with topics decided by the group via a poll that begins every Friday and ends on the Tuesday morning of the new chat. Every Friday at around 10 p.m. Central, we get together to stream a high-level summary of the previous week's chat for those who are unable to participate. Please be sure to also give some support to the other podcasts in the Guardian Radio Network, links of which can be found on our website. If you're a fan of lore in all its various forms, be sure to also check out thelorenetwork.com, where you can find a wide variety of some amazing content that covers a number of different titles and mediums. Our next chat is going to be a discussion on the extra lore topic for October, Bloodborne. However, as always, please be sure to weigh in on the poll this weekend to let us know which topic you want to discuss after that. Links to that poll can be found on either Twitter at FocusFireChat or within our Discord server. With all that being said, here's Green with a high-level summary of tonight's topic.
Secrets. Do you come in hope, O listeners, for the secrets of the Awoken? The Marasenna reads much like a holy text. The genesis of a race, establishment of order, civil war, and exodus of a people back to the realm from which they originated echo religious texts we have out of game. There is much to learn and even more to speculate thanks to this, which without much formatting is over 30 pages long. We can begin to comprehend Aldrin and Mara, both learning that their personalities didn't really change when they became awoken. And finally, start to grasp how a race changed at the beginning of the collapse could have such technological advantage. But be wary not to swallow this book wholesale and dig too deep. You will likely miss the point.
Before we jump into the information and thoughts the community had about Marasenna, however, let's have a quick chat about this week's Lost Lore. So, similar to what we did with the last couple Lost Lores, I figured Green and I have had this conversation offline.
Argument?
Well, yeah, I mean, friendly debate? Friendly debate, because I don't really feel like I have a lot invested in either way of the side of it. So I think one of the big questions that I've seen actually quite a few times, not just towards us, but other, like, in general, is like the meaning of Marasenna. What does it mean? Because it's kind of, a made up word. So what could it possibly mean? We had a couple people reach out, or we had one person reach out asking us about, do you think it's a nod to Mara's full name? Do you, and then all that. And so I'm curious. Green and I have had, like I said, we've had this conversation. Green, I'm curious, what are your thoughts? Well, do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first on
Either
thoughts?
Way,
Actually,
Beard, you want to go first?
Beard, you want to go first?
Well, I just want to interject that I figured I would look up the word Senna, at least.
See? Beard's on my side.
Oh my
Beard's
God.
on my side.
I think it's hilarious.
To be fair, I started there, okay? I just went a different direction. I just went a different direction than Green did.
I figured you would. I'm just sitting here going, you're combining Mara and Senna together.
Right.
And this just doesn't work out very well because... And, all right, maybe it does make things work out kind of well. So I'm going to define to you what Senna means right now. It is a noun. The plural is senes, and it is the cassia tree, a laxative prepared from the dried pods of the cassia tree. So,
the cassia
in essence...
Before,
all right, before I get to my joke, go ahead.
Before you get to your joke, and we break blue any further, the cassia tree is like a shrubbery to add to the funniness. It's a shrubbery.
Bring us a shrubbery. Sorry, that was my way of redeeming myself from dying of the fact that it's a laxative.
That you can make a laxative out of it, which, granted, you can make a lot of... Anyway, go on with your joke, Beard.
Yeah, so to me, I think Wicked Gesture has already gone ahead and ruined it, but it just makes it to the point that it's easier to accept Mara for what she is, and I think that's where they're going with it.
Wow.
Which, yeah.
Wow. No.
Yeah. Yes. So the Mara said,
no.
I don't think it's Mara's necessarily Black Flag, but it just makes accepting what Mara has to tell us a little easier. Which, per that notion, just tells me overall, I think I really just see this from a completely different perspective now.
So,
moving on entirely.
So green.
That's hilarious.
Green,
for the non-salty perspective of that same breakdown, you stop it. Senna being tree, this is like the family tree of Mara. This is the family tree of the Awoken. It's the history of the Awoken. Very simple, straightforward, nothing to do with laxatives, nothing to do with all over my Awoken queen. Jerk face.
Wow, okay, this went a completely different direction than I expected it to go.
Okay. Well, and if you...
Let's dial that back.
And if you look at later in that definition, it actually starts talking about the etymology of the word Senna, and it will point you back. There's a couple different theorized roots. One is the Germanic for the edge of the sword, I believe, and then the one that I kind of latched onto was the Latin/Italian basis of inna. And so this is kind of, and I kind of mentioned this before we went through the intro, but in a similar way that we saw the Aeneid and the Maraid is the other piece of text from the Awoken that we have. And the Maraid, I really strongly argue, is Mara's story of the founding of the reef, because it's the Mara Aid. Similar to the Aeneas founding of Rome is told in the Aeneid. As far as the Marasenna, I think it's more of a play off the, and I wrote this, actually, I was being asked about this earlier, so full disclosure, this is what my response to them was. And I'd say, I actually kind of argue that it's not her name, but actually it's more of a play off the idea of a collection of tales. This is where I kind of make a nod. It could be possibly derived from Germanic term ek, which means edge of sword, and agi, which is awe, terror, or fear. But actually what seems to be more likely to be the case, if you went down this little rabbit hole that I went down, is that its usage in the English tongue is actually more likely to be from the Latin or Italian use of inna, which refers to a province in Sicily. So there's a bit of a explanation that needs to be made here as to why I think this actually is applicable. Inna is the location of an event in Greek mythology called the Rape of Persephone. And this was the story of Pluto capturing Persephone and kidnapping her, basically, and dragging her into the underworld. And so this would tie into some of the other terms that you see within the Marasenna, namely the imponent and catabasis, which are both events that are similar to the legend of Persephone and Hades. And so you kind of see a little bit of a connection there. Also, the fact is that we have seen a lot of times mixing of the Awoken with the Greek mythology or the Roman mythology. So that's kind of where, again, I'm kind of like, I mean, there's kind of a nod there. Dino is also pointing out in chat that Senna is an Arabic name for brightness. And then Mara means bitterness and death. So Marasenna could be the balancing act, like the Awoken themselves. So that, I mean, that's another really good point there. You know, there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of play on this, you know, depending on which definition you're going with. I mean, anywhere from Beard's laxative to Green's family tree. You know, and to be fair, I don't think that that's wrong. I think that's actually like both of those are, well, Green's is very, very good. Beard's is effing hilarious, but it's, I'm not gonna, anyways. But I think like the etymology there too, I think is really kind of, it was a kind of a cool little thing. I'd completely not even thought about, you know, the whole mythology aspect to it. But if that is the case, that's a really kind of cool little nod to a really, it's a disturbing part of the myth, because it also explains the reason why the seasons exist, and there's a lot of stuff that happen within the Persephone and Hades myth that, you know, explain a lot of the natural world that we have, but it also would be paired pretty nicely with what was actually happening within the Marasenna, because with the humanity that became the Awoken being ripped into the distributary, kind of, you know, not necessarily against their will, but not necessarily because they wanted to, and they are allowed to eventually return. But the price of returning is the sacrificing of some of the gifts that they had been quote unquote given. You know, I see a lot of parallels with that particular mythology or myth and the Awoken Marasenna. So but I know Green kind of disagrees with me.
I'm just adamant about my way or the highway at this point with that one.
I mean, look, I think you're both wrong about it, and it is obviously a way to accept Mara for who she is at this point, which is still a
so now
backstabbing
all I can hear is that I am allowed to shout me whenever I disagree with them.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Green, I know Green has done just a fair amount of research for this one, so I'm actually going to let Green kind of walk us through really just like an introduction of what the Marasenna involves.
So Marasenna is huge in comparison to a lot of the books that we have so far. It is,
that's an understatement.
It's, if you take just the text of the Marasenna in 10 font times New Roman, it is 34 pages long. Straight.
Oh God, why would you do that?
I did that because I have Evernote, and it's a lot easier for me to like pretend I'm working at work with a text document up rather than a web page up.
Okay, that's fair.
But yeah, it's huge. It, like, if you've listened to the recording of the Marasenna, I think it was like an hour and 50 minutes long.
Yeah.
Or quite near that. And it is a ton of information all the way through, and we're obviously not going to go through every aspect of it or every like little ins and outs, but there are 4 cards in particular I do want us to read. First one's one of them, the 2 cards involving the transformation, and then the very last one, and then we can just kind of go over what each of the sections are about. It's broken up into these mini arcs that have kind of their own, you think of it episodically, they're very episodic in their descriptions, and Blue was so nice to actually do like the breakdown of what each of those titles are. But to start us off, we'll start with Archiloquy, which is probably my favorite card in this whole book, because it is the card that actually prompted the whole question of, is this truth or is this embellishment?
Yeah.
So, here's our colloquy. Secrets. Do you come in hope, O reader, for the secrets of my reign? A parable, In the nitrate earth of the lightning crater, where the firmament has joined in electric fury with the fundament, there lives a burrowing insect with 2 trembling antennae, thin as whiskers, long as life. A grasping hand reaches for the buried secret, finds the antenna and pulls, comes away with a single whisker, meaningless. The searcher disappointed. A wounded insect buried deeper, the secret now half blind. That which digs for truth may bury deeper lies. If you recognize my authority, then I command you to pass onward as gently as the lover passes a razor over beloved skin. If you do not, then I name you Magicept, doubter of royalty, and I suggest you watch your edge. Cut too deep and too quick, and you will kill the thing you want to know. Think too eagerly, and as the digging hand leaves its print in soft earth, you will find the image left by your own presumptions. Beware the one who feeds on truth-adjacent lies. Beware the space between reality as imagined and reality as is, for it is abundant to those with appetite. So then, the brave voyager's fate, the timeless birthing place, my Milton reenactment, the ruins made ours, the riven twice riven, the daughter's blood scabbed hard on mother's wound, all things told, all truth revealed, if through mist and mystery. If you have grace, then see our sorrows, but swallow back your tears. We were made to pay this price. I led us to our fate. Seek me in my place. Hear these whispers from the lips of queen-egged God. So, basically, I love this opening paragraph because it's just like, hey, don't overanalyze. It's Mara saying not to dig too deep and not to take everything so incredibly literally that you'll miss the whole point.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say or dig too far into what into what she is trying to say or pull at every single word or so on. Because that's what at least what I tend to do too. I generally will look into like every single word and go from there, which speaking of, funny enough, they she mentions the Milton reenactment.
Mm-hmm.
Did you look into that one?
Oh, I understand Milton.
Okay. Well, I was
You know who else is obsessed with Milton?
Go for it.
Toland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went through, the reason I say that is I went through a lot of those collections of quotes that I'd been looking for. I managed to finally kind of hunt down a lot of them. Oh my good Lord. He quotes Milton a ton in them. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, it was kind of ridiculous, actually. The first couple, I was like, oh, okay, maybe they're trying to be cute with the nod to pre-Golden Age text or, whatever. And then, like, about like the third or fourth time, I was like, okay, dude, stop.
I mean, he has his playbook. He's going to use his playbook.
That's true.
Just like Zavala uses his playbook and Shax has his playbook. It's just...
But the helmet stays on.
Yep. And there's that reference for the evening.
That was a meme I forgot entirely about.
I almost put that on my list, but I thought I'd be nice to you for once.
Thanks.
Speaking of which, I got a message from our good friend, oh gosh, what's her name? Liz?
Mm-hmm.
With the new voice line.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm sure she messaged you too. Anyway, that's interesting. But back to the Archiloquy. The ending is the most confusing part to me. Why does she call herself the queen-egged god?
That gets explained in the end, I believe.
In The Awoken of the Reef, or the end of this book?
Is it not in Pelagianus 2? I thought she explains it.
It's just such a... It's such a weird
sign off. We'll get to it. But it is also in The Awoken of the Reef.
Okay.
She refers to herself as that because of a lot of events that happen within the Awoken of the Reef. But Palagenesis 2 does nod to that. I believe it's, and like I said, I think you said we're going to read this one. But
Yes.
her ending of the Palagenesis, she refers to herself as the uncrowned Everqueen.
Right.
And then there's also the I don't think they're in a lore booklet, but the segments that explain what happened between the Taken King event or the Taken War and the showing up of the Dreaming City, when she encounters Toland and he like runs screaming and stuff like that. There is a nod to her being what is it, the Egg Queen or whatever, or queen-egged god. There's a reference to that as well. And then there's also a reference in the construction of the
Reverie Darn armor is what Dino is saying.
Okay, is that okay? Thanks, Dino. There's a reference in there's a reference in there, and Wicked, he doesn't scream. He kind of screams and runs away. There's a reference in the Reverie Dawn, and then there's also the eggs that are spread around, that are mentioned also as being parts of the 3-week cycle or the key lock that Guardians are supposed to unlock for the Last Wish. That whole thing that whole kind of ties into this imagery of the queen-egged god. And so like this entire process, remember also that this is where she introduces the concept of catabasis, which I know we'll probably get into a little bit too, because the catabasis is also the evolution of her. She asked the question, what happens when the queen reaches the other edge of the chessboard? You know, the evolution of the queen into something more, into a minor or major godhead as well, is a really big topic for Mara in general, which is also explained. I believe I think you're calling out Cosmic Gyre, right? Mara's birth. Yeah. Okay. So in Cosmic Gyre, you kind of see that as well. You see that a lot, like really heavily, especially in the Catabasis card and the Nye. That's where a lot of that kind of starts coming to a head, and you start to kind of understand it. You actually don't get the full grip or the full breadth of Mara's quote unquote crime in the Marasenna. Which is interesting for me, because her actual full crime gets fully detailed actually in the Awoken of the Reef when she confesses to Sejur.
Sure, yeah.
Or Sure. I don't know how you want to pronounce that, but when she confesses to her outside of one of the ships, that actually doesn't occur in the Marasenna, because the Marasenna is basically up until they come back. So yeah, I think there. It's explained, but it's explained in like a really roundabout, inference heavy way.
Right.
That Mara is 100% all about evolution. She's about intricacies.
Advancing her people too.
Right. She's about the intricacies of secrecy and the undeniable advantage that complex systems have over simplistic systems, which we'll get into, I know, especially if we kind of mention the bomb logic, or the logic of the bomb as opposed to the logic of the sword. She has a really good explanation of what that is, and I believe that's also in the Palingenesis
That's at
too.
the end.
Yeah. I love her explanation of what that is, because it hits it on the head as far as what her kind of underlying psychological structure really is. But I think so. I don't know if that answers, but I mean, it kind of gets detailed throughout the various texts that we have.
It does, and it's talk about like psychological, like getting to know Mara. This whole book is a good way to start to understand at least that Mara and Aldrin have always been this way.
Yeah.
And a lot of, like, Aldrin has always been the way he is.
Well, and so really quick on that, I was rereading them today. I actually found it really interesting, and I was reminded of this. Mara is actually, like, in Brephos, I'm assuming you're talking about Brephos as far as like, when the original.
I figured we could start on that one since
definitely.
It's the introduction arc.
Right, I definitely agree. But I find it interesting because Mara in Brephos is actually the one that's arguing to go back to Earth. And Aldrin is the one that's arguing
to stay.
We chose to abandon them. We have no right, or they don't deserve us, basically. I find that really kind of, because it shows a degree of Mara that is not what we see in Mara Sov today, really. Like
but there is.
I mean, there's
Mara
a hint. There's a hint of
Mara
it.
still wants to protect Earth, but she's not doing it the way that young Mara necessarily wanted to. She protects Earth in the way that she can.
Yeah. Well, and Mara today has experienced Guardians, whereas she, and her opinion of Guardians is pretty low.
Right.
But sorry, I just found that I did find that really interesting in the Brephos piece.
Right. And speaking of Brephos, Brephos is the very first arc. It happens before the transformation, and it is by far the most interesting. It is very counter written to a lot of the other stuff because Mara, she says cool. I picked up on it today. I hadn't picked up on it when I read through it the first couple of times. Yeah. She uses the word cool in it. And I'm like, what? Who are you? What are you doing? But Brephos talks about some of the major characters throughout the book. Mara, Aldwin, not Aldrin yet, Aldwin, Osana, the Yang Liwei ship, which now we also know is Green. Gosh, what is the name of the Why can't Exodus Green? There we go.
Did we confirm that?
That is in one of the later cards, I believe. Cool.
Yeah. I know I refer to it as the ship spire because that's
it's
what it
in
becomes.
Cosmic Ire 1 is where it mentions it.
Okay.
So Brephos 1 is Mara's entrance. It depicts Mara sitting outside of the ship. The ship's name is Yang Liwei, which is kind of like this massive ship that is being slowly making its way out of the system. She's 19 years and 9 months, and she has no like distinctive race that you can tell. And she's just outside, kind of hanging on a tether, just being outside. And then we get the most hilarious description of a scene with an egg, rabbit fetus, or was it rabbit fetus or rabbit egg?
The frozen rabbit fetus that was the encouragement to leave.
Yeah, her reason.
Specific.
Right. Is it a Jade Rabbit reference? That was my immediate thought. I don't think it is.
Friggin' Dido. That's all.
I know, right? All the connections. But reason why Mara and her family are on this ship leaving is because of this incident with the rabbit embryo shattering the face mask of the worker that she was working with because they were repairing something, and he instantly died.
Which is better. Which is better than the suit being punctured and succumbing to vacuum.
Well, considering Mara lets herself succumb to vacuum multiple times.
That's why she's blue.
No.
That's why she's crazy.
She's special.
That's a nice way to put it.
Right. So Mara signs her family up to go with Project Amrita, which Amrita is, in Hindu mythology, is the ambrosia of the gods that bestows immortality. Amrita is the Exodus green ship getting out, getting away from the Traveler, leaving, trying to get as far from the Traveler as they can because a lot of them believe that the Traveler is in some ways unhealthy for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So they leave on Yang Liwei, which Blue mentioned to me that Yang Liwei was the name of the first astronaut from China.
Yep.
Which is really cool.
There's a lot
Did
of
not-
reference there because Yang Liwei was the first astronaut from China. You said earlier about Amrita being the reference to the ambrosia, which is also similar to Ichor in Greek mythology and all that. But and the charter that they mention a lot, or at least Alice Lee, who's another character you get introduced to here, mentions quite a bit. The Charter of Amrita is all about furthering humanity and peace and balance and all this, the stuff that the Awoken kind of embody in and of themselves is all described within the Charter of the Amrita Project. So, which is basically like a peaceful immortality, and immortality of the peace of such.
Mm-hmm.
You also learn that Mara is an Autarch third class, which means she is essentially like an independent contractor. She goes and finds problems, and she's supposed to report it back to an Autarch second class, but she doesn't. She goes and fixes it herself. So she's supposed to identify problems on the ship. And the other thing that Mara does that is very odd that nobody else does is she actually lives outside of the ship. She doesn't like to live inside. She lives kind of on her own. Now, she does go back inside multiple times, but she prefers to be tethered outside, just watching the blue shift happen, which is kind of cool.
She also is a bit of an exhibitionist.
Yeah, that comes up in the next card in Brayfos 2.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry.
No,
I was like, that's weird. That's weird that that was like the
segue.
big thing for in Brefos was it was like, wait, Mara's kind of a what? Like
Yeah, Mara. Well, let's talk about that. Mara in Brayfos 2, we find out that Mara has been recording these EVAs that she does, where she's tethered to the ship and she floats out kilometers away from the ship. And they have what's called cytogel, which is allowing her to essentially survive out in space. And she recalls the majority of the cytogel up to her face mask, where that is literally the only thing that is not exposed to space. And then she calls that back. And she records it neurologically, which I think is interesting because that implies that there is a sort of implant already going on.
It also, to kind of interject real quick, it also explains the Ares 1 mission's ability to record everything in like high def, because if they're pulling altered carbon disk level tech at this point, it's like, I mean, now granted, this whole thing, to be fair, Brefos is taking place during the Golden Age. Like, actually, we'll find out exactly.
The end of the Golden Age.
We'll find out exactly when in just a second. But it is actually after, the Golden Age has been going on for a while. And so, like, arguably the tech here is probably a little bit more advanced, but it does give a nod to how the Ares 1 mission could have been could have been recorded.
Well,
I
they
did like
also
that
give
nod.
they give some slight hints of that with the the Mars or the crew armor from Warmind. Remember how they say there's holograms all over the
Ares
tables
1
and
Yeah.
whatnot? Yeah, so it's not like we're in a today realm.
Right.
This is quite possibly
still in the
something that's
future.
happening like 2300 or something like that, maybe. Or maybe like 2070 at the rate that we're going with technology at this point. I don't know. But you get my point. Like, it's not too far out of our distant future, but it's still kind of out there. But now the holograms in general are something that kind of like called to my attention. Something also, though, that really caught my eye in Brefos 2, since we're talking about her being able to handle the vacuum of space and whatnot, thanks to this cytogel or otherwise. We read actually in the first paragraph that there's also some more genetic tooling going on with humanity and how that was. Whether that is related to just Project Amrita, we don't know. But that is something that kind of calls like maybe we were playing with some stuff we shouldn't have been. But that's just another little tie back. Makes me wonder if the blue skin or otherwise of the Awoken is purely thanks to the exposure to becoming Awoken, or if there's something else going on there. But in addition to that, I've got a small theory on this person that Oldwin is fighting. I'm almost wondering if this isn't Sure.
Yeah, I've heard that one quite often. I think it makes a bit of sense.
The only problem I have with that, though, is that Sure is supposed to be really, really tall, and the myostation, if you shut off the myostation gene, myostation prevents your muscles from going too big. If you shut off that gene, it allows your muscles just to like incredibly increase. That doesn't increase your height, though. It only increases muscle mass.
Well, I think it would also depend on when you turn it off as well.
True.
Well, and another nod to this being Sure is that, Sure was described later on as being the only one. She has the Wishender is her bow, which only she can string, and it's only by literally wrapping the bow around her body.
Yeah,
right. She's described as being immensely strong, which I think is where a lot of people are connecting this pit fighter and her together. And to confirm, we don't ever actually get the pit fighter's name. Isn't that correct?
No, we don't.
Right, we do not. In addition to that, we also see towards the end of this card that she is incredibly overtaken with what Mara has done out in space.
Oh yeah, she stares at her in awe.
Yeah, she's just absolutely amazed by it, which if that was the tie back that they were intending, and this pit fighter is looking at Mara like that, it would be a cute little tie back to say, like, they've been together this whole time, but never even really realized it.
Yeah, and chat's pointing out too that it is very akin to Thanatonautics here.
So that
Dinah's also saying that, but perhaps Sure and Aldrin would have remembered fighting each other before. Maybe, but to them this could have also just been something that was like in a passing whim or passing idea. We also don't know how awake the Awoken were transformed or changed afterward.
Memories they retained.
Especially, too, considering how it is also explained, I believe it's in Cosmic Gyre. I know I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but Cosmic Gyre 4, Mara describes herself as being almost like pulled apart. And we frankly don't know how much of that is resequencing genes or changing around how she is. Right. So frankly, there is still that little bit that could be there that really opens up the possibility that even some body changes had occurred within some people. If they were either not in the best of shape, they had problems otherwise, etc. We frankly don't know. So that's where the speculatory idea kind of pops into it.
Right.
But again, that does also come into the ideas of how much were they able to remember. Because we've already seen and confirmed memory manipulation with some of the with Savin as the ghost and whatnot. I'm just throwing it out there. Like there's
these
plenty
are not
of things
guardians. These are Awoken.
Right, but it can still when you're
mention...
talking how the distributary is built though, or what the distributary is.
But we can actually get into memory a little bit later because Elise Lee does, or Alice Lee mentions that she remembers she was the captain when after the transformation happens, and that I don't remember which card it is right off the top of my head. Oh, it's a Ectasiate 1.
Yeah, it's really
it's right when she awakens. And I kind of have to agree with Beard. The question to me is more about are they allowed to remember?
Is Mara allowing them to?
Yeah, because
controlling the strings on that?
I guess spoiler alert, Mara was the first. I mean, kind of a big spoiler. But she allowed, I mean, that's kind of the crime, is she's allowed everyone to remember things a bit of a different history of how they awoken, given with Alice, or Elise, however you want to say it, given that she is convinced that she is the first, because she remembers being the first, and then she mysteriously remembers being the one who wakens Mara, but then we find out that Mara was actually the first. And so that kind of goes back to what Beard was kind of mentioning with Savin and with the Guardians, with their whole thing. There's a bit of manipulation of information in the mind there. And so the question kind of comes up is like, is that,
I don't think we have enough information to say one way.
Yeah, I think that is a question that is up in the air that could determine some of what the debate here kind of is.
It's more if we somehow ever get the logs of Ship Spire, Exodus Green, Project Amrita, whatever we want to call this thing, Yangla Way, it would be one of those things that we would have to look back into to say this is the actual ship's loggings that we have of this thing. And that's the only confirmation I think we're ever going to get out of this, which possibility of that happening is probably slim to none anyway.
Right.
Just based on the fact that they were already starbound.
Right.
Unless we find it somewhere in the Tangled Shore.
Well, but the only place that you would...
some of that was there, or is it in still the distributary, which I would argue the latter more than the former.
Because I would argue that it's all still in the Ship Spire, and that's all the basis of a lot of the distributary location is the kind of the central capital is the Ship Spire. Yep. As we kind of, and I guess that's kind of, furthermore, but I mean, talking about the importance of the Ship Spire or the Amarita or whatever you want to call it, that kind of does lead us into Brephos 3, because Brephos 3 is the introduction of Alice, the captain of Yangli Wei. And, this kind of is where you kind of start getting the sense that Mara, even though Mara is a third class auturge, she is in and of herself kind of a minor figure of note, and there's a bit of a cult that follows her, and even the captain even admits that she has watched one of her recordings. She's a streamer. Yeah, she's IRL streaming is what she's doing. And this is also where you're introduced to Mara's mother, Osana, when you kind of get a really good grasp of the relationship that Mara and Osana have. It's a very not parent and child almost. It's almost two equals that are at each other. And Mara is, you start kind of getting a bit of a sense of who Mara is, her own discomforts. For example, Mara is not a fan of being inside the captain's captain's cabin. She's actually scared. Apparently, the idea of cow milk is disgusting to people. That was really kind of an interesting thing.
Oh, cow thing.
Well, is that what it is?
They call it a cow thing in the card. It's Lee serves some very battered pre-traveler ceramic sloshing with hot green tea, then immediately adulterates her own cup with milk from the cow thing on biodeck.
Revolting, isn't it?
She calls herself out, but it's Mara grew up in space. For one, that is something you get from the original Brephos card, where she talks about why she chooses to go on. She pretty much grew up in space. Yeah,
that's fair.
She may not know what an actual cow looks like.
I found that so hilarious.
Yeah, it's kind of showing her youth here too.
Right. Well, and it kind of also explains where her influence kind of comes in. You get the definition of an auteurge, which is the volunteer. Basically it's like, which it kind of sounds interesting because the captain is saying that she can't order her to stop. Is she talking about the EVAs, or is she talking about the work that Mara does for fixing?
She's talking about the EVAs.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I would lean towards the EVAs because it's basically saying like she is has been pointed out in chat, she's an influencer to some degree. Like she has some sway over how it is that she handles, but really Alice just feels like she's trying to warn Mara this entire time, like, hey, don't do anything stupid to yourself, because then all of a sudden you're gonna throw off morale for the people that care about you. So
well, and she also refers to Mara, and this is me kind of nitpicking, but this is another Roman concept. She refers to Mara as a house god.
Yeah.
Which is a very, very kind of it's not necessarily just Rome, but it was a very
also an Asian concept too.
Kind
I think
of.
they called it something differently.
It's not. It's more of like guardian spirits, I think, in the East. Like family guardians, I think, is kind of the more. I'm not 100%. They have a similar concept. That's
correct. Just think Mulan and Mushu. Like that's
okay.
Actually very close idea to it.
The mighty Mushu.
But they also deal
Disney
with
reference.
ancestors quite a bit differently as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So there's a few different pieces in there that you have to kind of think of.
Yeah, because a house god is not ancestral. A house god is other. It's I mean, like your Rome and your Greeks had it was a third party that was not necessarily familially related to the family that lived within the house, whereas with the East, they were all like they were literal ancestors. But like her comment here about being the house god is like she's kind of agreeing with Osana in the sense, as you will see, I think you'll see this later. Osana is kind of bitter towards Mara about how she abuses her power over people, and the captain here is saying the same thing. Is like like you are a symbol. You are, you have like it's just. And she says this, when you endanger yourself, you endanger that symbol. You are part of the mission's behavioral armor. She is something that is protecting and giving people hope, giving them a reason to, continue doing what they're doing. And as such, the captain's like, and as such, I'm invested in you continuing to, be that thing. So
this conversation actually is really important because it does come back up later towards the end of the book.
Much later, but yeah, absolutely.
Well, not to mention it kind of reaffirms Mara's entire understanding of pretty much everything. Like, I mean, this is arguably where Mara's paradigm shifts from being, just someone who's getting things that she wants. She's now, I mean, she even says that she's like, I didn't ask to be anyone's mascot. And the captain's kind of like pushing back, and it's like what people make of you, what they create of you, even without your consent, becomes a kind of responsibility. Right. And that's where, and she and Mara quotes that almost verbatim back at her. I think that's it's in Nye. Yeah. Like she's like, you told me this, like you were the one who taught me this lesson, and this is the catalyst, I would argue, of what one of the core tenets of Mara's personality kind of comes from.
Or at least helps solidify that personality.
Right, sorry, yeah, it reaffirms.
The next, so that's the end of Brephos. We're through one section. We've got a lot to go.
We can do it.
The next one, oh god. Hold on to your bootstraps, guys. Next one is Cosmogire, as far as the art goes. And Cosmogire is where we see the actual transformation happen. We see the distress call come in, and we actually learn that Yang Liwei and this fleet or ship flying out is Exodus Green. And there's a lot to unpack in Cosmogire.
I think it worth kind of almost summarizing this entire thing with just defining what Cosmogire means. It roughly means world or cosmos whirl, which, if you want to think back on how what happened with the Fallen, it's not far off from that. It's the whirlwind. Here comes everybody.
Yeah, kind of. It's just its own little thing. In Cosmogire 1, we get introduced to the fact that there is an unknown object following them, or at least toying with them a little bit. And a lot of these cards are on the flight deck between Elise Lee and her crew. And then we get a card number 2 is between Mara and Aldwin, going to basically go on an EVA during this whole breakdown, and they're going to fly out and they're going to go out to try to meet whatever is going on because they're a little crazy.
Well, it's also where Mara, that's her comfort zone.
Yeah, she feels
and it's
safest in some ways out there.
I was about to say it's a base psychological thing that if you're threatened, you retreat to where you're most comfortable, even if it makes absolutely no sense. Like, that's what animals will always do, is if you threaten an animal, it will retreat to a safe zone.
Right.
Yeah. But I do want us to read Cosmogire 3 and Cosmogire 4, because I think these two are probably at least the closest we've ever gotten to knowing what happened for the event. It gives us a description of it. So, Beard, could you read 3 and Blue 4 afterwards? And let's save the breakdown until we get through all of it, because it kind of ties back into each other.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, God, I forgot how long this one was.
Sorry.
It's fine. The stars have gone out. The universe blackened, a shroud of nothingness drawn over Yangley Way. Its 40,000 sleeping passengers, its 900 crew, and maybe even the whole solar system. There is no way to know, because there is no way to see anything beyond the hull. The vacuum itself has become hostile to the propagation of light. Darkness surrounds them. The ship bucks on a storm sea as space-time ripples with gravity tides. "Report," Captain Lee calls. Her sensorium blazes with positional telemetry from ring laser gyros, beacon satellites, pulsar fixes, cosmic microwave background texture, galactic EM field terrain mapping, every signal instrument useless, crashed, spitting nonsense. Sound off by stations. "Fido," the flight dynamics officer calls. "Main engine on safe, thrusters firing erratically, attitude control keeps crashing to manual. Guidance, I have no position, I cannot get a vector. We're moving, but I can't tell how or where. Inco, no external comms. Internal networks are dropping in and out." An incredible sensation watches over Captain Lee. A rumble and a thrum down in her gut, in her marrow. The lowest, basest elements of her body. It is the vibration, the sound of the very fabric of her being scrunching up and stretching out. The distance between the atoms of her body collapses, then expands. The cycle repeats again and again. For a moment, she feels her fingertips and toes pulled away from her core, yanked by tidal forces. It feels like the lowest rumble of the biggest subwoofer ever built. It sounds like the deep voice of God whispering ASMR directly into her ear. It tingles, it thrills, and it leaves in its wake a subsonic tint of dread and anticipation. She shivers. "Gravity wave," she says. "Talk to me, Geode." The space-time geodesics officer looks like she's just been hand-delivered a Nobel. "This is amazing," she crows, fully aware that she and everyone else are about to die, but transported away from such temporal concerns by scientific rapture. "Can you feel that growl? We're experiencing high-frequency, high-amplitude gravity waves, phaeton strikes, axions decaying through the hull, sterile neutrinos. It's all coming from a source at bearing 045 Mark 0, 30 relative range highly variable. Another wave tears through Yanglai Way. Everything in the ship simultaneously compresses and stretches as the gravity wave deforms the space-time metric. Is it the Phantom? Lee demands as the ship thrums sonically. Is that Phantom ship emanating these waves? I have no idea, Geode says exultantly. None of this makes any sense at all. Wow! Alice Lee has the distinct sense that something ancient and malevolent is operating upon them, a trillion-fingered hand reaching in to caress the very atoms of their beings, setting photons a-spin, strumming nerves like guitar strings, a tongue with 10 billion slithering forks tasting the surface of their brains. The sense of imminent doom crescendos. She knows absolutely and utterly that what is about to happen to her and to her crew is far worse than death. The darkness knows them now. The thing that has come to kill humanity has their taste. Inko, she clings to her restraints harness as the ship growls through another wave. Her bones creak as they stretch. Last report on the Traveler. Any sign of an intervention? It was at Earth, Captain, and there were high-yield weapons discharges all over the signal. Nothing else. Understood. Well, she did not fly this far to look back and beg for salvation from an alien god. Pinned to the center of her sensorium is the blazing ledger of her crew's vote. We go onward. We do not return home. Our fate lies ahead, not behind. Launch an antennae, she orders. I want every probe and satellite we've got outside. Captain, Inko protests, the vacuum's not signal permissive. We're still passing signals internally, aren't we? Use hardline. Run filament between the satellites. I want a transmitter sail out there, and I want to broadcast. Her flight crew stares. Captain, Fido says, broadcast what? A declaration of neutrality. Alice Lee grits her teeth against another wave. It rattles her molars in her skull. Whatever's out there, it came for the Traveler. We tell it we're not part of this war. We've seceded from human existence under the Traveler. We demand to be treated as a separate species, not party to baseline humanity's conflicts. And we pray there's something out there that cares about the difference.
Dun dun dun. So that brings us to Cosmic Ire 4, which starts. She remembers everything about the moment she is born. She has gone outside the way to die in starlight. She cannot bear to let anyone see her fear or her awe at the scale of destruction or her pity for the billions of souls dying in darkness of her background soul. She cannot be among the other crew as they cling to each other and whisper reassurances, not even with her mother. She cannot surrender her mystery. So she kicks off the hull on 50 kilometers of tether. But there's no starlight to die in. The darkness is absolute. Gravity waves tug on her line, pulling her back towards Yang and then hurling her away. In time, she feels another vibration in the line. Sister, the tether transmits, I'm coming out to get you. Brother, she thinks, you'll lose yourself trying to follow me. Captain Lee's voice breaks through the static, drawn out to a mumble and then compressed to a shriek. Spikes of hard radiation go through her words like bullets, spattering phonemes into eerie compression artifacts. This is the interstellar vessel Yanglai to the entity interacting with us. We are not involved in your dispute with the powers around this star. We are on a mission to begin a new life elsewhere. Our purpose is orthogonal to yours. We request your indifference. Mara's tether trembles with the old one's progress. She holds it in one hand and reaches out with the other, gripping the emptiness, feeling how the tides of broken space pull at her fingertips. She senses that the nothingness around her is not indifferent, that it is aware of all purposes, and that its own purpose encompasses them. It is infinitely hostile, because it must be. Suddenly, as if the void around her has just spontaneously big banged, she sees light. A point of pure white shines in cosmic distance. Not just visible luminance, her suit decomposes the spectrum, but light in the radio bands and microwave, keening, ultraviolet, a spike of gamma, a total and all-embracing radiation. It sings. It chatters. It speaks in a voice older than suns. She feels that she could furrier the voice for a century and never decompose it into its parts. It is awesome and appalling and piercingly true. Mara understands how those who die in radiation accidents must feel. A single flash of invisible power sears away all possible futures except one. She feels her soul itself has been ionized, blasted into a higher energy state. The light pierces the darkness, not like the sunrise, not like a wall or a flood, but a singular crepuscular ray, a finger of radiance that reaches out through the deepest night to touch her. It illuminates Mara, Aldrin, and Yang Luwei. It is not quite enough. It cannot vanquish the shadow. Thus Mara finds herself drifting on the edge of the light and the darkness, on the dusk and dawn gradient between the two. She feels a contest, a battle fought in equilibrium reached, not a truce but an infinite limit, like an equation dividing by zero, a collusion of two violent eternities. Mara queries Yang Luwei for telemetry, and her sensorium fills with the terrified scream of gravitational instruments. She howls too, a feral sound, ecstatic and lost, a wolf baying at the stars. She knows what's happening. Too much power has gathered here. The universe is appalled by the paradox. Nothing that has glimpsed this collision of infinitudes can be allowed to escape. The cosmos must censor its embarrassment. It must sequester the anomaly. The slope of warp space-time around them has become too steep, and now every path outward or forward bends back towards the center where light and dark collide. The definition of future has become synonymous with the definition of inward. This is why it's called an event horizon. For an object within the horizon, the path of all future things that can be done or seen leads inevitably down to the center. All events lead inward. A singularity is forming around her, a cucublitz, a black hole created by the concentration of raw energy. "Mara!" Aldrin shouts. "Mara, you're too far out!" Mara thinks of her mother's face. She hears Osana say, "I can't watch over you like a mother would. I have to make my own choices now." She fires the detach command into the tether. Gravity seizes her. She falls forward in space and time, into the future, into the mystery. Yang Luwei is behind her. Aldwin is behind her. She wants to be the first.
Two incredibly deep cards.
Yeah, they are.
With a lot to unpack in both. I mean, first we get the basically the approaching of the darkness in Cosmic Ire 3 and how it affects the ship and the crew with the sterile neutrinos and all of that good stuff, which granted, when we hear sterile neutrinos, anytime in Destiny we think about the Taken. Now we're getting it coming in these gravity waves, which are shaking the core of themselves. And it's interesting because they're just getting the waves, and the waves are enough to like rack their bodies. It's not even the epicenter of what's actually going on.
I mean, we're also talking that these are high pull gravity waves, and if you've ever had G-forces on your body, doesn't take much to knock you out.
Oh, and
that's not even close
make you
to
sick.
Yeah, that's not even close to what these guys are feeling up in space like that. That is an underestimation for me to at least say that it's something akin to G-forces of any kind.
It also puts in perspective exactly the scope of what is happening.
Yep.
Where, I mean, these were literally insects involved in this whole argument between two. I mean, like, you know, it's like two titans are arguing, and we're just kind of like, oh, just don't get stepped on, you know, just like running around the feet of the giants and trying not to get squished.
I mean, it's to whomever at Bungie's credit that had written these couple cards out, especially that third one, talking about like how insignificant we are just to make sure that we know like how screwed we frankly were.
Oh yeah.
And it was like these things have powers over forces that we can barely comprehend. Like even right now, we don't know how singularities work or anything like that. But for something to generate wave functions that are similar to that out of nowhere is amazing. So just to really put into perspective how much I appreciate the third one and how much detail it goes into. Because the first time I read it, I was just like, okay, my space nerd is well tingled. This is good.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite parts of that card in particular is actually coming from Elise Lee at the very end, where she's basically saying the Declaration of Neutrality.
Mm-hmm.
She calls out essentially what the Awoken are. We've seceded from human existence under the Traveler. We demand to be treated as a separate species, not party to baseline humanity's conflicts. Right. She's essentially, dare I say it, making a wish at that point to say that, hey, we're not part of that group. Right. Now, granted, she's not actually wishing upon an Ahamkar or anything like that.
She's making a covenant. And that's what gets called out. Well, that's what gets called out later is the reason I say that. Alice says later that we were granted this world by a covenant with high powers, and in that covenant, we yielded our claim to our history. We abandoned what came before, but in doing so, we cast off all our debts.
Well, and that is either knowingly or unknowingly creating that covenant in a lot of ways. Because
right. Oh, yeah. Now, I mean, be careful what you wish
for. As a captain, she's probably just thinking for the safety of her crew, just to try to save them. But as an Awoken, that mindset can obviously change. Right. And it obviously does change in priority to what we might have thought that it meant beforehand. Now, from what, of course, Blue had just got done rattling off, that's where I think that there is some very good evidence, solid evidence of like how the Awoken's brains have kind of been played with a little bit. Because now it's for a different reason than it was previously, sure. But it sounds like the entire interpretation has changed besides.
Then we get into Cosmic Hour 4, where we actually see the pulse of the Traveler push back, and then the mixing of the two, which Mara actually goes out to try to reach the singularity, the aspect that is mixed.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I mean, first time I read it, I was just kind of blown away by these two cards out of all of this. It's just like, oh my God, I am watching the creation of this race. And I'm not even watching the end result. I'm just watching the beginning before anything actually happens. Just crazy. The definition of future has become synonymous with the definition of inward, which would actually take us into Ectasiate. And Ectasiate is basically the very first moment.
Quick, Green.
Go for it.
I'm sorry. I was just looking over my notes. I forgot about this. Cade's journal, funny enough, actually, Treasured Island actually calls back on how he remembers the darkness and how it felt. Mm-hmm. He also said that it was a force that ripped him apart.
Mm-hmm. Because I remember us talking about that being potentially an explanation of being taken too.
Yep. Yeah, it was his explanation of the darkness, if you will, but to me that at least signifies a little bit more that it was something that had happened throughout the system more than it was just in this little dense pocket that was the Yangli Way or anything like that. Anyway, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
I did want to also talk about, real quick before you go too far on it, Ectasiate. Mm-hmm. Old English meaning to go into ecstasy, just to highlight what it'll go for. Carry on.
It is the awakening of the Awoken. In general, it is them waking up after this whole event and the very first couple of moments and the establishment of the Awoken people. Mm-hmm. Ectasiate 1 is the awakening of Elise Lee, and I appreciate the symmetry that is brought into this. And do we have a reason for the symmetry besides the mandalas? Because the symmetry in the name, and then they break the symmetry.
Yeah, I kind of think the breaking of the symmetry was the point. Because they're in balance, because because the Awoken are perfect in themselves, or whole in themselves and in balance according to the verdicts. And then, like, it's kind of like they are simplifying / purifying the balance within them, I guess, in a way. I think that's kind of like, I haven't had a lot of chance to dig into it, but that was kind of this thing that struck me at first, was like, it's a matter of balance, and it's a matter of simplifying those aspects of identification, which, I mean, it kind of goes back into, you know, like the concept of the naming of a thing is also dominion over that thing.
Right.
So go for it, Beer.
In addition to that, to at least highlight like what a mandala is, I have it listed here as a geometric figure representing the universe in Hindu and Buddhist symbolism. Also a symbol in a dream representing the dreamer's search for completeness and self-unity. I also have it listed here, and I find this kind of an interesting little tieback. It almost feels like the Awoken are similar to the Exo with this specific tieback. It's a regular battle of gods. So for me, it almost feels like the ideas of like Deepstone Crypt and everything are not very dissimilar to what they're showcasing with like the mandalas and everything of the Awoken. One obviously is a little bit more programmed perhaps than the other, but...
We also get a description in Ectasiate of the distributary at the very end.
Yeah. Well, actually, for me, this one's a little bit more loaded than I think we're even making it. So we also get a part of the charter, or the Amrita charter that's in here. And I find this super interesting for a few different reasons. What we're kind of showcasing... What's that?
Are you in 3 or 1?
I'm in 1.
Okay.
Part of the charter reads, "Sun is the cradle of life, but we cannot remain in the cradle forever." This thinking is highly akin to that of Soviet rocket science, and I'm going to butcher this, Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. His quote is more about Earth than it is about soul, however. Dead Orbit also seems to follow this to some philosophical design or idea. But that's the first time that we really see part of the Amrita Charter in some regards. I just find it funny that the Charter is still looked at as like a basis for how the Awoken are put together. But in addition to that, we have to remember what the last thing was that Alice had actually had flashing up on her sensorium, I think it's called. But that was to not go back to Earth. It was to continue to go out into space. And ironically, this idea carries onward as we kind of go through the remainder of the Marasenna, which, as Blue had kind of highlighted earlier a little bit, how each of them, I think, looks at this idea of returning or not returning has altered and changed with that passage of time.
Man, all of this card, all of these cards, the whole concept of the distributary and the development of it. We also get Mara's awakening in Ectasiate too. Now, fun thing, you learn that Mara was the first to be changed, but was she... There's the debate out. Was she the first to awaken? Was she the first to be changed? What is the definition? What is the fine line of it? If she was the first to be awoken, period, which she was the first, we learned that in Awoken to the Reef, then the whole card, or the whole concept that Beard was talking about quite a bit earlier, was between the idea that Mara planted those ideas in Elise Lee to be awoken first. It's very, very manipulative before she was even, like, before anything really settles.
Right, backstabbing wench.
I don't like that. That's my queen you're talking about.
She's not my queen.
She's my queen.
She's not my queen.
Fine, more for me.
That's fine. You have that.
Go on. Now, Mara waking up she finds Elise Lee and they have like a little interaction together talking about how the world is developed or how long has she been there. And Elise Lee says she thinks she's been there forever. Time is very questionable at this point. And you kind of come to learn about that a little bit more as we go on in the book.
Back in Cosmic Ire 3, we do get the listing, of course, of the numbers on the ship. We find out that there are 40,000 crew that are asleep, and there are 900 crew members. So this leaves your listing at 40,900. This number is very important,
but
you will
does
find out
it
very quickly?
So in Ectasiate 3, since we're there already,
yeah,
we learn how
Green can attest to my freak out at this card.
Oh my god! And
Look,
everybody is asking me about it still.
It's still such a legend. I have so many different thoughts.
I think it's a red herring.
no.
I think it's a red herring.
Yeah,
I mean, I can honestly see it both ways.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of leaning on the same page as Green. Like,
I think
kind of do.
Thumbing their nose at us a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so Ectasiate 3 talks about how more Awoken got pulled through or awoken up or were awoken themselves. 2 became 4 and 4 called out and then 4 became 8. So they increased exponentially by calling and reaching out and pulling more people through, essentially conjuring forth by their doubling. The sleepers did awaken. And so they pulled all these people in, and then we get the council, which is really important. And I know I skipped over the number. I'm skipping it over till the end so we can talk about it at length because I know we're going to do that.
Okay.
The council is something that is set up by Elise Lee to set up the
verdicts.
Verdicts, thank you.
Well,
that's the word.
The verdicts were so they weren't set up to establish the verdicts. They were set up kind of to determine what they were going to do. But then they got into disagreements,
right?
And the verdicts came out as a response to the disagreements that they all got into.
It was basically people versus the claimant, if you will. That was
Right.
where it all kind of just branched from.
Because
So
they
there
originally were
are-
going to be like, we're going to call for, or they couldn't agree, and they said they were going to call for a vote, which then leads to the verdicts being formed, which the last of which is that there is no vote. Alice is the queen.
Right.
There are 8 verdicts and a 9th. So
What's that? New monarchy? What?
Or the 9? What? First, people were awoken and they are immortal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to keep going past you, Beard. I'm sorry. Second, that this world was tributary of another, but it was forbidden to seek any way to rejoin the mother streams. For this reason, we'll call it the distributary. So I'm kind of paraphrasing a little bit. Third, the awoken should multiply in wombs of flesh and machine, but only after most careful forecast of population and ecology, and only under the supervision of those who knew good technology, for each new child would be immortal. Fourth.
Yay, eugenics.
Yeah, who's to say that they weren't already doing that before they moved into
Well,
this
I
area?
mean, fair. I mean, they are in space, so.
And Mara already had some sort of implant, likely.
Going on. Yeah.
Right. Fourth, that those wise and good technology should be heralded and heeded so that the technology could be preserved. They were the Utex. Fifth, women should hold care and protection of the men and others until more could be born, aka there are way more women on this ship than there were men, and they're going to have to do with a little bit of population control. Sixth, that the purpose of the Awoken should be to know and love the cosmos. Seventh, that the Awoken were created out of covenant with light and darkness, but the covenant was complete, and no further debt would ever be called except the duty of the second verdict to remain on the distributary. Eighth, that the Awoken were whole in themselves and they existed in balance. Ninth, that there would be no vote, but instead Elise Lee would be recognized as queen. So basically they're like, kind of almost throw
and
it
the
all
vote,
out and make her
right,
queen.
and the vote there that they're talking about is the one that is was the entire reason for the council, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is where you also get like, you know, the division between the ones who were awake when they were become the ones who were not sleepers and the ones who were sleepers.
Mm-hmm.
Because the sleepers seem to not remember. Well, they don't remember because they were asleep. They're trying to like. They're like, where the what's
going on?
Why are we here? Like, what is going on? And you know, and so there's like 40,000 of them. That's quite a large number, and that was why the council was originally called, was to kind of like determine everything that was going on, and that led to the argument that led to the verdicts being made. So when they refer to the vote being made, they're referring to, I'm trying to find the exact quote real quick. Against her was Owome An. So Elise and Owome were basically on two opposite sides. And so Elise says that this is where that quote that I had read earlier came from. She says that we were granted this world by a covenant with high powers, blah, blah, blah. Look forward. Let us explore this infant cosmos and revel in its glories, you know, and basically we're not going back. And then in opposition, Owome, who was one of the 40,000 sleepers, kind of challenged her, and she said, no, we are the aliens here. We have to climb back up our world line, which was the ship spire. And we have to return to the mother world. And Owome actually is the one that calls for a vote between in the council. And then apparently there was a sub council with Mara, surprise, going on in secret, in which
What's
basically,
that? A coven, you say?
A coven? What?
Not yet. That's not
yet.
officially made yet.
That's later. That's when we get to UTech, which is also really fascinating. But this is where Mara kind of comes in and kind of starts really kind of starting to manipulate people. But because of the disagreement between Owome and Alice, that's where the council came up with the 8 verdicts, and then they threw on the 9th verdict, which then allows Elise to make her first proclamation, which comes back and bites her in the butt.
It does.
That, what was it? That there are to be no secrets among the Awoken. Which is like, I'm like, oh, bad move.
So, yeah, secrets. Society needs secrets in some ways. Speaking of secrets, you want to talk about the secret number that we've been avoiding this card?
Oh, before that, real quick, actually, just leave it more in suspense. As a reminder, the majority agreed before they got to the distributary that they should leave Earth to its fate.
Yeah.
Remember that as we go along, because it seems like there's a vocal majority or a vocal portion that still cries out to say, why aren't we going back to Earth?
Well, not necessarily Earth.
To at least get out from the distributary and
right.
At least figure out like where they came from. Like the Awoken are obviously, and we find out a little later on still too, very interested in their ancestry.
Not all of them, but there is a good portion that is.
And
it was enough that Alice Lee had to make verdicts.
Right. And to be fair, though, also remember that the ones that voted were not the ones sleeping.
Right.
So, 900 people voting for 40,000 when the 40,000 wake up and are like, WTF. Oh, yeah. In chat, wow, that was a really smooth trip. Hey, why am I blue? Like, it's like, it's a bit of a shock.
Right.
Yeah, a little bit.
So, yeah. And the number that Awoken...
Yes. Which the breakdown is 30,111 were women, 10,295 were men, 485 were otherwise. So if you're pretty good at math, what does that come up to?
40,891.
Mm-hmm. And what was the number I gave before?
40,900.
Where are the 9?
So there's 9 missing.
Yeah.
We don't know where they are.
Oh, we all know where they are.
We know where Bungie says.
Lost in
God.
space.
And to be in space.
Oh, God.
Danger.
Anyway.
Danger.
I mean,
And to be
if
fair,
you-
I'm pretty sure that the 9 missing are the ones that were not sleepers.
Yes.
Yeah, they were part of the crew.
I'm pretty sure they were part of the crew. Yeah.
They were part
Well,
of the crew.
they make that to be a very actually important piece of it because they say there were 4. I mean, look at the
Yeah,
card again
the
here
40.
real
They
quick,
keep
but
referring to them as 40,000. The 40,000 say this. The 40,000
Yeah.
say that. Then
they
call out the 380. What is it? The
891.
891.
891,
Has
yeah.
different number. Yeah. Yeah. They separate the numbers, so it is very clear that something happened with some of the crew members involved. So wherever these 9 crew members were, that they were otherwise affected differently is kind of the question. Were there others that were outside, like Aldwin and Mara, that became a different fate? I don't know. I don't think any of us really know.
Mhm.
The biggest thing, like Mara was flying towards the thing, and did something happen where the Anglo-Way was like pulled into this singularity or different spot, etc. That's the problem. Like we don't know where these 9 are legitimately, but I will say that it does fall back onto the Legends of the 9 card. So just to kind of
yeah.
stop backtracking on that a little bit. But that being said, yes, there's some weird pieces there. I don't know. I don't think that these are the 9, but anyway.
I just want to know if these are the 9. Which one is the shouty one?
Mm-mm.
I mean, okay,
No.
we have that card that says the Awoken are the 9, the 9 are the 9 ghosts, the 9 are the blah 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 from
Yeah, the
back in
legends.
D1.
Right.
Oh my God, it's just like,
Yep.
The
what if the
gather
9 are
information
literally-
check.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Play your
I still say it's just a culmination of many things, and all of those legends are true and false
yes.
all at the same time.
I am beginning to think that as well with as
Look
many
here,
of the
multiple
things
man.
that-
Look, I
But
have
it's
said
not
this
even
for
that.
like over a year per this point. Like over a year at this point that is exactly what's going on.
Yay!
that the 9
multiverse.
aren't just 9 entities, but multiple entities of 9.
Exactly. Yeah, they're not like I said that they are the 9 ghosts. I said that they are 9 Ahamkara that survived afterward. I've said that they are 9 Awoken. You know, there are several things that kind of fall back on this idea, but again, anyway, there's plenty of different things that kind of strapping back into this. Yes, Blue, there is only one War Mind, but we are only ever going to say that there's one War Mind. Why? Because that one is a falsehood. So, to you, oh, bear mine,
I
leave you 2 truths and a falsehood.
Oh my God, you two.
Bring me a
So-
shrubbery.
So we
I
are
don't want your
about
plants.
halfway through this book, and we're getting ready to start some pretty deep stuff when it comes to the Civil Wars
Right.
Oh,
and the
Theodicy
development
Wars.
of and Mara's multiple tentacles going out and being treacherous without letting herself be known.
Well, now that
Um,
image is stuck in my head.
Sorry. I would blame Beard, but I don't have a good reason to, so I'm going to do it anyway.
Continue, Green. Continue.
But
Oh,
that
Lord.
being said, I think we should actually stop this episode because we're almost at 2 hours.
This is the best spot to stop at this point because we've now established the Awoken and we've seen how the ship has been broken down. At this point now, it is now how does this civilization build itself up from like the darkness and light that has been itself. This is the absolute best point to break this up. I'll be interested to see if we can actually put the next up into just one other episode, though.
God, yeah. It would be
Yeah,
interesting if we can fit
I
it
quite
in.
frankly don't think it's going to happen because
I mean-
I think even the next couple cards are deep enough. Like, these are going to be here for a while. We'll be on these long enough. Anyway.
Yeah, I think we should call this one a night and then just pick up again on a different episode.
Yeah.
Blue.
That's fine.
Do you have
want to do
shout-outs?
Yeah, I was about to say, do you guys want to do any shout-outs then? I wanted to give a big shout-out to the Knights of Ni. They are inspiration to all of us who are hunting for our own shrubbery. And this is what happens when Green blindsides me halfway through the content and says that we're going to do shout-outs.
I swear to God, Blue, I'm going to give you a flesh wound.
No, I mean a big shout out to pretty much everyone who was with us this last week. I just appreciate all the support that you guys gave us. We still have the anniversary shirts on sale over on Teespring. We'll put the link on that for the show notes. If you guys want to grab a copy of the snarky shirt that we put out for the 3rd year, that would be greatly appreciated. And then, like I said earlier, we do have a giveaway. I promise that I am trying desperately to find the free time to put those together. I'm probably going to throw together, I think at the end of the day, I think I'm just going to throw together a Gleam giveaway, and get it done with. But I will continue to keep everyone updated in Discord as time allows. But yeah, that's pretty much my shout outs there.
Beard?
I honestly don't have a ton right now. I have been very disconnected from everything that's been going on the internet the last week here. So I don't really have too much that I can honestly think of. I guess I will say with Halloween coming up, I don't know when we'll be able to get this episode out. I think it'll be in time for Halloween, but if you're celebrating, if you're running around or anything, just be safe out there. World's a crazy place, as we all know. Just be safe and know the environments that you're in. But that being said, just have a happy Halloween, because it's my favorite holiday of the year.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool. My shout out is to all the new members in Discord. There's been quite a few of you guys in the last couple of weeks, so welcome to Discord. Don't be shy to chat at people or call anybody out. Make Beard come into our side of the channel every once in a while.
I mean, yeah, just at me, because that's like the best way to do it with how busy I get. It's not because I don't want to interact.
Right.
It's because I already have my own community that I'm trying to interact with. And trust me, they keep me on my toes.
Right. There's also a lot, like, I know Blue's also in a ton of Discords. Beard's in a lot of Discords. I'm rapidly getting into too many Discords. I have unfortunate amount muted at this point where I'm very rarely in there actively. Mm-hmm. But I am almost always lurking in FFC, so if you want to chat, just like Beard said, at me, or if you want to ask a question or just want to say hi, that is the easiest way to do it, is just at one of us, say hi. We'd love to chat with you. Mm-hmm. And welcome to the family.
Yeah, man.
Blue, back to you.
All right, well, we're going to take off, and we will see you, well, it probably may be a little bit sooner than in a week if we can figure out scheduling.
Yeah. Especially with not necessarily intending this to go longer than one episode, but we should have known better.
Hey, we'll figure it out. We always do. So you guys have a great week, and we will see you when we see you. With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. Links to our episode archives can be found at www.focusfirechat.com. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any comments or questions for our team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. Also, be sure to check out all of our amazing partner podcasts within the Guardian Radio Network over on theguardiansofdestiny.com. So until next time, focus your fire, and may your light shine bright.